She used Dad's house for a $92K loan. I had his POA. She forgot that. My father's deed was in a stranger's hands before I even knew he was sick. That is the sentence I keep returning to. My sister Renata had signed closing documents on a $92,000 business loan. She used Dad's house as collateral. His house? The one he'd owned free and clear for 19 years. I didn't find out from Dad. A county lien notice found out for me. I want to tell you how I know exactly what she did. Meanwhile, I didn't piece it together alone. Our neighbor, Mrs. Calloway, called me 3 months after it happened. Her voice was steady on the phone, but her hands were shaking when I finally saw her in person. She told me she'd watched Renata escort a man in a grey suit inside. Dad was in his recliner post-surgery, barely tracking the room. The man spread papers across the kitchen table. Renata guided Dad's hand to each signature line. Mrs. Calloway had come to drop off soup. She stood in the hallway and watched without understanding what she saw. But she remembered every detail. I need to give you some background. My name is Marcus. Our father, Gerald, is a retired pipe fitter from Akron, Ohio. He raised us alone after our mother died. Renata was 9. I was 12. That house on Delwood Avenue was his entire net worth. He paid off the mortgage in 2004. Next, he kept the deed in a fireproof lockbox under the basement stairs. Renata had always been the one who stayed close. I moved to Charlotte for work in logistics management. She stayed in Akron, near Dad. I thought she was being devoted. Still, I was wrong about what she was actually doing. She'd been running a small catering business for 4 years. It was never profitable, I knew that much. What I didn't know was how desperate she'd gotten. She needed capital for a commissary kitchen lease. Instead, she needed it fast. Dad's paid-off house became her solution. When Dad had his hip surgery, I drove up from Charlotte. That's when the county lien notice arrived in his mailbox. It was addressed to Gerald Holt regarding a recorded lien. The lender was a commercial finance company out of Columbus. I stood in his kitchen and read it 3 times. Dad was confused when I showed it to him. He said Renata told him he was signing insurance papers. I drove to the county recorder's office the next morning. You wouldn't believe what I held in my hands. A complete closing file, loan agreement, deed of trust, notarized signature pages. Dad's signature was on every page. His handwriting looked slow and uncertain, nothing like his normal script. She hadn't forged his name. She had something worse. Meanwhile, she had his genuine, uninformed consent. Here is where my own position became relevant. 2 years earlier, Dad had signed a durable power of attorney. I was the named agent for all financial and property decisions. That document was filed with the same county recorder's office. Any encumbrance on his property required my written authorization. The closing file had no such authorization. Not one page. I called the commercial lender's compliance department that same afternoon. Next, I faxed them the recorded POA document. I told them calmly the loan had been executed without the authorized agent's knowledge. Their legal team called me back within 48 hours. They had already flagged the file internally. Their notary had noted Dad's diminished responsiveness in a post-closing memo. That memo had been buried. Now it wasn't. The lender began a formal rescission process over the following 6 weeks. Their compliance team referred the matter to Ohio's Attorney General Consumer Protection Division. Renata hired a local attorney. That attorney called me twice, asking me to keep this in the family. I did not return the second call. Still, I went back to Charlotte during those weeks. I had a job to do. I'd just been promoted to regional director. Life kept moving forward for me. Meanwhile, the AG's office was moving through Renata's financial records. The catering business dissolved before spring. Instead, the AG's investigation resulted in a civil enforcement action, not a criminal charge, a consent order. Renata was required to repay the lender's administrative costs. A financial fraud notation was entered into state records against her. The lien on Dad's house was vacated entirely. His deed came home clean. I flew back to Akron when the paperwork was finalized. Dad and I sat on his porch on Delwood Avenue. He didn't say much. Neither did I. His house was still his. That was enough. Renata called me 6 months later. I let it go to voicemail. She had seen exactly who she had wronged. Meanwhile, she had also seen exactly what I was willing to do about it. Some people spend years building a safety net for someone they love. They file the paperwork and stay ready. The people who exploit that love always forget one thing: someone else was already watching over what they tried to take. Have you ever had to protect a parent from someone inside your own family? Tell me what happened in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe to Karma Served Cold. The next story is already waiting for you.